Hello and welcome to Ask an Economist. My name's Matt.
And I'm Richard.
And today we're going to be looking at a speed limit on tax. The coalition are talking about having a tax to GDP ratio that's a speed limit.
So we're going to have 23.9% of national income. We can collect that in tax, but any more than that, bad.
Yep.
Get a speeding fine.
Get a speeding fine. So the government is declaring that 23.9% is the most amount of tax that can be collected, and if they collect more than that, they'll introduce tax cuts to get us below it.
Wow. And what if we're below it, 23.8?
Well, presumably we need to tax more.
Wow. This is very precise, isn't it?
Yeah.
23.9?
So where did this 23.9% figure come from? Straight out of the air?
Straight out of the air. To be polite, plucked out of the air. Look, absolutely meaningless. I mean, let's be clear, when we measure national income, GDP, we get it wrong. We're always revising the data. We go back and we look at it a month ago, a year ago, and we're always, the ABS go back and say, you know, we said it was 100, it was actually 98. So that'd be a bit weird, wouldn't it? If you'd had your tax collected, you thought it was 23.9.
Got it exactly right.
They
revised the figures.
There's so many reasons why this is absurd, but it sounds sciencey, it sounds economicsy, it sounds very precise. And
yeah, I mean, if they made it 24, you might think, they're just using a round number. But 23.9, geez, that must be precise.
Couldn't have randomly come up with something
No way,
like that.
that's got to be accurate, 23.9.
And keep in mind that having plucked this number out of the air, it's not based on Australia's history, it's not based on international experience, it was just the average amount of tax collected in some arbitrary period. If you had picked a different period, you'd get another number. But really, here's the elected government whose job is to make good decisions in our long-term interest based on the situation they find themselves, based on the circumstances they're in, the problems they face, and they're saying in advance, no, 23.9, that's how much tax I'm going to collect. I mean, Matt, what would happen if a government just always tried to collect the same amount of tax?
Well, how does it know in the future how much, what it's going to want to do? Like if its citizens want more of a particular service and they want more defence spending, they want more on aged care, they want more on childcare.
So if we had a war and the government said, all right, we're gonna muscle up.
Sorry, can't have more tanks, we'll breach the cap.
Or, you want more tanks, sorry, health system, can't.
Because you don't need a health system in a war, right?
Probably not. So we'd be locked into the future with no idea what's going to come up, but we have certainty about our revenue, but no idea what the pressures on our spending might be.
That's right, and you're basically locked in presumably forever if that's the cap.
I mean, there's so many things wrong with this idea. Another one is that a key part of economics is the idea that governments adjust their taxing and spending in order to suit the economic circumstances. And we saw this with COVID. You know, the government just completely abandoned, rightly, the budget and went, well, we're just going to spend a lot of money because that's what was needed. Well, the opposite's true. When the economy's booming, you actually want to collect more tax than usual. Like in the middle of the mining boom, back in the 2000s, that one, the one over there.
Yep. Behind us in the past.
That one is behind me. Tax revenue went up, but that was actually good because we knew the mining boom wouldn't last. And if we hadn't have collected all that tax, we probably would have had some inflation. Now, Matt, there's a fancy name for this when governments collect more tax when the economy's booming.
Oh, what is it, Richard?
It's an automatic stabiliser. There's a hint in the name. You stabilise the economy. When the economy's booming, you collect more tax.
And that slows the economy down because people have less money to spend.
And it happens automatically.
Yep.
Right? You don't have to increase tax rates. It's just when the economy booms, you collect more tax. And then when the economy slows down and unemployment rises, what happens automatically, Matt?
Well, the budget goes into deficit. The government spends more than it taxes.
More money goes out on unemployment benefits, less tax gets collected. So because we have this thing called the business cycle, you want tax to GDP to move around, and the government's kind of promising, it's this wonderful kind of planning delusion. We're going to have certainty. We're now arbitrary 23.9. We're just going to project that out into the future.
Yeah, and imagine we're in the middle of a boom. The economy is doing really well. The government's got lots of tax coming in because people are earning more and spending more. And at that exact time, the government wants to slow the economy down because there are inflationary pressures. But instead, it finds it's breaching the cap. So what does it have to do? Cut
Taxes in the middle of a boom.
And pump more money in, creating more inflationary pressures. And the Reserve Bank is just going to start pushing interest rates up and up and up.
Which is exactly what happened when John Howard did this back in the 2000s. Now, again, there's so many crazy things wrong with this, but here's some good news. This is just a forecast made by this government.
Yep.
How many of their forecasts have come true?
Oh, they do so well. We're back in the black. Budget surpluses as far as the eye can see.
Wage growth's about to pick up.
Wage growth is going to go nuts at any moment, Richard.
Yeah. Bizarrely, we're having this sort of phony debate about the hyper importance of this 23.9 speed limit on tax. But the one thing we can be certain of is this government, and indeed no government, no treasurer, no prime minister knows what the future is going to look like. So I'm pretty confident predicting that we won't have 23.9% of GDP collected as tax, if only because we can't forecast GDP that accurately. And if we did, it would be a fluke. And again, what if something unexpected happens? I mean, the whole point of being in government is to adapt to what happens, not to just tell everyone in advance.
Thanks for watching Ask an Economist. If you enjoyed it, please hit like, subscribe, and if you want other people to get this message, share our video.
If you want to stay up to date with all of our stuff, please sign up to our mailing list.